And here we are. It's Tuesday.
How about that?
Yeah.
It is Tuesday.
Is my TV broken?
Yes, I forgot to tell you that I broke your TV.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
there it is.
I
Look at
fixed it
that.
too.
Nice job.
Yeah.
You have the power to suggestion, right? Mm-hmm. So you were gone this weekend.
I was out of town. We had Kira's done this trip in the past, just her and the boys.
Yeah.
And this year it worked out and maybe helped out that make it happen too. We have a baby too, so
Good news.
good news.
We both still have jobs.
Annual meeting went well. Then.
We did not get fired.
Yeah, it's always a possibility. You're
Yeah.
just waiting for that person. I so move.
And then
That-
two-thirds of the people agree, and that's
Yep.
the end of it.
Yep.
I'm packing my bags.
There you go.
But we're still gainfully employed.
Until next time.
Until next year, we'll give another shot at it to see. Actually, had a couple of people express concern to me that essentially the statement is, you can never leave. That was what was expressed, and I said, there will come a point where that happens. And I said, the only thing that would short circuit it from a normal retirement is if I won the lotto. And then they said, well, I'm going to start praying you never win lotto. And then I said, well, it's very kind of you. I said, but the chances of me winning lotto are very small because I can only buy tickets when I'm out of town.
Yeah.
And I don't get out of town more than half a dozen times a year. So it's only like 6 times a year that I even have a possibility of winning lotto. And then the odds of actually winning the lotto on top of the 6 times you might play is pretty small.
But there's a chance,
I
right?
said, but there's a silver lining to that if I did win lotto.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And I said,
I think you gave a sermon on this too.
yeah, I'd pay the church mortgage off. I said, but I probably would retire too. But, like I said, the chances of the Bergeron family hitting it big with Powerball is probably next to nothing because it's not legal in this state. So therefore, there's not regular playing, and the odds are like 6 jillion to 1. So
Yeah. They say your odds are not good.
not good, not good. And, so that was the nice thing. And then they said, I'm going to pray you never win lottery. So.
Yeah.
So
They're a
isn't
very
it-
kind
So
congregation.
so I actually have encouraged somebody in their prayer life.
Deep
so isn't
into
that
prayer.
Yeah, I led them to prayer
Yeah.
in this. So isn't that fun?
Yes.
So we had a great annual meeting. It lasted 59 minutes. We got the official count.
59 minutes.
59 minutes. That's the way an
Open and
annual
close.
meeting should be. And we got through re-electing folks on council that all of them wanted to serve a second term. So we got them re-elected en bloc, which means we just voted on everybody at once. We passed the budget, which is not a whole lot different than last year's budget.
Right?
We heard
Right.
reports, including the video report,
The video report.
and from there we adjourned. So it was actually
That's all, and that's all right, because we've got things that the congregation should be aware of,
yep
but at the same time, there's nothing that
is
is
shocking
too controversial or shocking about any of it.
because we also share information throughout the year. So there's no like, what?
Clutching of pearls.
That's funny. I put it in the Reach 2 weeks ago. I put it in the, I talked about it last month, but once again, the reminder is if you weren't in church this weekend, pick one of these up this weekend or online on our website. It is in a PDF format. There's so much good stuff in here. And thanks, Susan, for getting this all
there
together.
Is.
She's like
great that
herding
you could put that
cats,
together,
trying to get
and
everybody
You can
to-
see the wonderful job our printer does too.
Yes, our new printer, which, by the way, is saving us about $6,000 this year in budget money.
There you go.
So because I know the minute you say new printer, somebody's thinking, what does that cost?
Yes.
It's actually
You know this
saving
stuff.
us money. So how about that? Take that, armchair quarterback.
Yes. And it does a fine job of printing.
It does in 11 by 17. So, and that also will cut down on external printing costs because our other machine couldn't. It technically could do it, but it jammed up. So This one's geared so that we'll do less.
This one did not jam, so far as I heard.
Nope, it did not. We'll be doing more in-house printing versus out-house printing. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
I like. Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
Much better.
Not going to the outhouse anymore. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that I assumed some people watched the Super Bowl this weekend.
I think there are people who did that.
Yeah. This
So
house
I've
this
heard
house
rumors
did
of.
not.
Watched some of it.
You know, near the end of the game, I guess. I mean, I was like, I wonder what the score is, so I Googled it,
Yes.
and then that was it.
That pretty much tells you what you need to know by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I was telling staff today, we did have a competition on. We had the Puppy Bowl on.
Did you?
We did.
Who won the Puppy Bowl?
I'm thinking it was, I forget the Team Ruff.
Team
I
Ruff.
think it was Team Ruff, RUFF.
Yeah.
And there was a superstar from Las Vegas playing in the Puppy Bowl.
Really?
Yeah, his name was Max with 2 X's.
Okay.
From, I believe, the Nevada SPCA, I think. But we watched the Puppy Bowl for the hometown talent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing I remembered until about, I think it was almost like 6:30 when I woke up from my nap on the couch. I was out. I was out deep. And then after that, we went to the grocery store together.
Okay.
Yeah, speaking of that, a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
on the news, there was a news commentator, and I'm not going to say their name, made the comment, and it was all politically motivated, because they saw a couple that was in politics in the grocery store.
Okay.
And this political commentator, I'm going to use the word in air quotes, news person, said, what kind of man goes grocery shopping with his wife? Literally, that is the quote. I'm not exaggerating.
Really?
And I was like, first of all, why would you ask a question like that? And then secondly, I'm that guy. I go grocery shopping with my wife because it's time together and we enjoy being together. We actually like each other. And so doing something like that is something that brings joy. Why? Not because we're picking out food, but because we're together.
Yeah.
It's just absurd.
It's finding reasons to divide ourselves
Yep.
one from another. I mean, and that is clearly a reason. Like
Right?
I don't have enough people to hate right now.
Yeah, right?
And so I better go out of my way to find somebody to hate.
Hate. That's correct.
And
And,
I mean, that's
and it's also a very
terrible existence, isn't it?
it's a sexist
Oh,
comment.
It's awful.
And so we went grocery shopping, and I kind of got my menu for the week. Last night I did teriyaki steaks, and then I made some rice with some Asian seasoning in it, and salad. So we did teriyaki steak and rice last night, and tonight, because it is Tuesday, it is going to be Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
Yep,
All
I
right.
have some carnitas that I'm going to pull together, and I have some corn tortillas. I like corn tortillas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and skillet, warm them up, brown them just a touch. And
Just a touch.
I'm going to do rice and beans, some pinto beans.
Yeah.
So it's
Very
Taco
nice.
Tuesday.
Very
So
nice.
that sets me up when I get to the grocery store that I can lay out some things. And by then, after yesterday and today, we'll have enough leftovers for the next couple of days too. So I won't necessarily need to cook again.
There you go.
When we had 3 kids in the house, one meal, food gone.
And then it's gone.
And it's gone.
Yeah,
You
I
know
get
about
it.
this.
I get it. Yeah.
And as they get into those 10,
Yeah.
11,
We
12,
can still have leftovers.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get to a point where you're like, I'm going
didn't we
going
cook
through
it?
half a gallon of milk every 2 days, like that kind of stuff. And how come there's no yogurt in the house? Because one kid decided to have 6 after school.
Yes.
His stuff. I mean, that
Yes.
this is
Yes.
coming. And then a meal, and there's nothing left, right? So now it's like we've, even though we've been on our own for a while, both of our appetites have shrunk. So when I cook now, I got to keep paring back the amount, because it's we'll have too much leftovers.
Yeah, I've heard that from other people too, where they're used to cooking for the whole
Yeah.
family, and then
So it's kind of nuts. So I think I figured it out. We're about right for a couple of leftovers, and then done. So Isn't that exciting?
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
So, my apologies. We began last week in the United States taking a month called Black History Month. Why? Because it is also American history. Black
Yeah.
history is American history.
Yeah.
But often those stories of folks are forgotten, pushed aside for much more of a white dominant culture, often oversteps, and we miss some of the great stories of people of color. And so it's good to have a month where you take some time and you go, let's remember some folks, let's remember some stories. And once again, I apologize for last week. We just had a crazy week getting ready for this meeting, and it's really not an excuse, but just didn't get to focus in on anybody last
Yeah,
week,
but-
and so
but
my
yeah.
apologies for that. But I have something today for you, and can we put up that picture now by chance? Can we put that up? So this is a picture of a gentleman by the name of James Mercer Langston Hughes, often known as just Langston Hughes. He was born in February of 1901 and died at May 22nd, 1967. He was a poet, he was a social activist, he was a novelist, a playwright, and a columnist. And he hails originally from Joplin, Missouri.
Okay.
And Joplin is down in the boot heel of Missouri. And he was also one of the earliest innovators of a literary form called jazz poetry. He is best known as a leader of the Harlem Renaissance. And if you know anything about the Harlem Renaissance, there was a period of time within the borough or the part of the neighborhood known as Harlem, where there was a renaissance of arts and music and culture within the black community. And so there was a Harlem Renaissance, and he really was one of the folks who helped spur that on.
Yeah.
And but I wanted to share. And let's put his picture back on while I read this today. It is a short poem by
Okay.
Langston Hughes, and I was moved by it, and I had saved it a few weeks ago, and wanting to share it in a broadcast. And the poem is entitled "I Too," like me too. So listen to this. I too sing, America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes, and nobody dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America. And I think that is a beautiful
Yeah,
poem,
It is a beautiful poem.
and certainly written in a time where there was less equality than today. We still have a ways to go in changing hearts and attitudes and opportunity, where there is still prejudgment. I'm not saying everybody, but there's still prejudgment of people who are people of color. And there is still racism and discrimination. And so we still have a ways to go, but certainly he writes from a time where saying go eat in the kitchen was something that would be readily understood. Where there were signs that would identify white-only establishments, bathrooms, drinking fountains.
And it's so important to remember because we can get lost and we can get into the trap of thinking, oh, that's so far, but and that's not long ago.
No,
I mean,
that's 20th century. Like,
yeah,
we're not
this
that
is,
far removed. Yeah,
it's still ingrained within us, and
That's
it's
right.
just like something we do have to remember. We do
That's
have to tell
right.
that story and do have to hear their voices.
and so Langston Hughes reflects on the situation of his day, but then looks forward to a day when all will be at the same table, and even that there'll be some shame for treating people as less than, because he too is America. And I just, that really struck a chord with me that I wanted to share. So certainly if that interests you, I would highly encourage you to get online and do some searching online for Langston Hughes and some of the other things in his life. If this spurs you to learn a little bit more about him, then I think we've done something good today in that. And also, speaking of Black History Month, even though I didn't watch it live, I was thankful that some staff members alerted me to the fact that the pregame of the Super Bowl, a woman by the name of Ladisi, with a choir, sang verse 1, because somebody sent me the video, Dennis sent me the video, of Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is a hymn in our hymnal, and we sing it occasionally here. And it is also has the moniker or the name of the Black national anthem, not because there's anything nationalistic about it, but the words and the poetry of it are so poetic and so meaningful that the community, Black community, finds great identification in that hymn. But it is a hymn, and so beautiful to see it sung so well and so publicly at an event like the Super Bowl. I personally love the hymn because it's not my hymn per se, but I certainly know that folks who identify with it, it means so much to them, and I think out of my empathy, which has nothing to do with looking down on, that's a different word, but my empathy and wanting to walk alongside folks, that hymn, in a different way hits me as a very meaningful hymn.
Powerful, yeah, and especially knowing more of that history.
That's right.
You should be able to take that in, because there's a lot there.
Yes. So if you didn't see it and you're not a football person or whatever, that's another place where you could go online and look up Lift Every Voice and Sing Super Bowl pre-show. So it was before the Super Bowl. It's well worth 3 minutes of your life to see it. And I would show it here if we wouldn't get blocked on Facebook for copyright infringement, which I understand. I get it. But there are things that I would love to show, to share, not make money off of it, because we don't make any money doing this, but to just share with folks. But if you didn't catch it, it's well worth looking up Ladisi, Lift Every Voice and Sing Super Bowl pre-show.
Right.
Because it really just knocked my socks off. Like I said, it gave me chills and a tear to my eye just watching it. So, but I highly encourage you to look for that and watch it if you can. And like I said, it's one verse, so it's about 4 minutes long, and so really beautiful. But we do have a different song for you today, and this song comes to us via the Psalms, but then put to music in the 1800s. And our choir sang it at 9:30. So if you attended any other service other than the 9:30 service, you did not get to hear this. And it was well done, and it was beautiful. And because it's based in Scripture, we're going to look at the source material from this song today.
Okay.
So let's take a listen, and we'll talk about it when we come back.
about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
We do, when I say we, I like to take credit for this. Our choir takes on a wide variety of music.
Wow.
But I will also say it's not very often they tackle a piece like this.
This one
Yeah.
seems to stand out. Yeah.
Yeah. And Johannes Brahms, that's where this comes from. German composer from 1833 to 1897. And it comes from a larger piece called A German Requiem. So
Okay.
often a requiem is a liturgy for the dead out of the Roman Catholic understanding. But this is the longest work of Brahms. We only heard a portion of it, but it's the longest work of Brahms, and it was the first thing that actually brought him to international prominence.
Is that right?
So
Wow.
kind of
Okay.
known within Germany and obviously a genius. And this elevated his stature. And the reason he called it a German requiem was to to distinguish it from traditional requiem masses from the Roman Catholic tradition. However, he's really clear about it is not a work of music or a piece of music for the dead. Rather, it was music to bring solace to the living, which I really love that, with words to help us cope with the ideas of suffering and death. So he's like, yeah, we don't need to sing to the dead or for the dead. This is for us, which is absolutely how we even view, if you kind of take it within that context of death and so on. We see, funerals and memorial services are not for the dead. They're for those who are still living.
Yeah.
Once somebody crosses the veil, they're in God's hands. Like that's God's territory,
Yeah.
and our ability to help or control, that's gone. That's all in God's hands. So when we look at it that way, what we understand is that what we do here isn't for them; it's for us.
Well, and help us to have that faith, because
Yeah,
we
that's right.
need that here. So
Yep.
we can have faith.
And so Brahms wanted this work to have a universal message, and he chose, and so we only heard one part from Psalm 84, but the whole work has Old Testament verses in it, has New Testament verses, and for you Bible scholars out there, even a few things from the Apocrypha.
Okay.
Yeah, just so you know, the Apocrypha is like the addendum to the Bible, and the Apocrypha has a handful of books that aren't questionable theologically. It's just kind of like, well, they could have been included, but they weren't. But they're pretty good. That's the kind of the best way to.
Right.
And not every Bible comes with an Apocrypha, but they're out there.
They're out there.
I have several. I mean, I have lots of Bibles, obviously. And
They were close to making it.
close to making it.
Yeah.
Like here's the second prize.
Yeah.
You get to be in the addendum.
Yeah.
And often the Apocrypha is found in between, in the way books are lined up, Bibles are today, between the Old Testament and the New Testament. They often insert for whatever publishing decision, the Apocrypha is kind of in the middle there.
Yeah.
And so he quotes from all of that, and actually Brahms only made a few remarks himself about this universal work that he did for everybody. And I'm gonna read a quote of his here at the end, and he says, "I confess that I would gladly omit the word German and simply put human, a human requiem.
Yeah.
It's for us." And that to me is really touching, because he gets it, that it isn't about a nationality. It isn't about, the German people or a specific, it's like, this is for humanity. And that's a gift when you can create something and say, I gave it the name German Requiem just to distinguish it from Roman Catholic liturgy for the dead. He said, but ultimately, this is a gift for humanity. To me, that is like a beautiful sentiment when you write something and say, actually, this is for everybody,
Yeah.
and love that. So this comes, like I said, from Psalm 84, which begins with "How lovely is your dwelling place," talking about being in the presence of God and being in worship. And that psalm is not a psalm of David, but it is a psalm. And but there's a lot of good parts within Psalm 84 that you don't necessarily hear within the
Yeah, it's got some
music.
beautiful poetry in these lines that in this as well as a lot of other.
In the
it's
in the
been
word
redone.
of telemarketers or no infomercials, but wait, there's more,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we want to cover some of the other stuff. And this one I like because when I was reading it, I could picture it. I could actually picture this.
Yeah.
And so let me read it to you. Psalm 84, verse 3. So from the same place as the how lovely is thy dwelling place. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar, O Lord Almighty, my King and my God. Now take yourself back to ancient Israel, to Solomon's temple, and outside in the outer court is where sacrifice is done. Not in the building, but outside for lots of reasons. But to go into the double doors into the temple, and there was a lot of what I would just say, it wasn't like a building that's built today with insulation and double or triple paned windows with nitrogen in between them for energy efficiency. It was a stone building with window cuts and doors open so that people could go in and sing psalms, sing liturgy, and worship God and pray. Now imagine walking into that, knowing how open it would be throughout the day, and looking up into a corner of the temple and seeing a bird's nest. I mean, can you
Yeah,
picture that?
yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
an open area.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course you close it up at the end of the day, but that a swallow or a sparrow sees that this is a mostly quiet and secure place and would build a nest in which to have its young. I can totally picture that. In the same way that even if you didn't grow up in the Midwest, you could imagine a barn out in the country where it's closed most of the time, but somehow birds get in and
Yes, they do.
and there's nests up in the rafters. Well, I could absolutely see a psalmist, somebody who's probably from the priestly order, writing this psalm and walking in, and maybe it was even common. Everybody knows there's a nest or two up in
Yeah.
the temple, but he reflects on it as even the birds want to draw close to God and the presence of God.
Yeah.
I love the imagery of that, and I don't think it was made up. I absolutely could see,
You're
up there,
imagining that,
up
like
up in the corner.
in God's dwelling place in the
Yeah.
temple, in that, yeah.
Yep, and that they would fly in and out of the window slits to gather food and come back, and so I don't find that to be a far stretch at all. But I love that idea that even the birds of the air would come and make a home near the presence of God because of the peace and the serenity of being in that temple.
I love that imagery. Yeah.
Isn't that really something else? And then here's another line from verse 10 that other songs have been written
Yeah.
about. I mean, there's a praise tune that we have sung in worship that reflects Psalm 84, and this is a line that is lifted and put into that in that praise
Yep.
too.
So once again, all of it coming from Psalm 84. Better is one day in your court than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked.
Well, I don't think that's an exaggeration. It's not like, oh, he's using hyperbole. I don't know about you, but on Sunday morning, Saturday night, man, I'd rather be there than anywhere else. I'd rather be in church. I'd rather be with the people of God. I'd rather be singing songs than and praying and just fully engaged rather than being anywhere else. So when he says, "Better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere,"
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
But
I am that guy.
Let's dwell with God. Let's
That's
dwell
right.
with God's people. Let's hold on to that.
Yep. I'd rather be a greeter at church. You see that?
Which is a fun role.
Yeah, it is. I'd rather be a greeter at church, a doorkeeper at the house of my God, than hanging out in the tents of the wicked. I'm all in. Sign me up.
Yeah.
You know, obviously I don't stand by the door, and neither do you. But you know, we're greeters on Sunday
That's right.
morning, man. We're
That's
just
right.
walking around talking to everybody who'll shake our hand and say something to us that we're doing that, and it's way better.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
I mean, somebody even said to me that, you know, that in retirement that I probably need to be a greeter at Walmart since I like to talk to people.
There you go. It's a good job.
Yeah. What are you doing here? Oh, hi. But I totally understand this whole thing about just wanting to be surrounded in God's presence and the people of God and the serenity and peace it brings, and you know, boom, you're in worship, and all of a sudden you're given the benediction, the blessing, and you're like, where did that hour go?
No, it's kind of
And when you're fully immersed in a moment, you're not thinking about the next thing. You're just there in that moment, and he's reflecting that. And I think that is universal for folks whose hearts are completely open to what God is up to when you're together in worship. You're just like, I'm just here, and my my heart and my mind aren't anywhere else but here in this moment.
That's the focus, right? Like how
Yeah.
can we just be fully present with God? Because God wants to be with us, and so just to leave that space.
Yeah.
Let's engage, because we are always with God, with
Yeah.
Christ, but to engage and
Well, and remember what
hold on to that.
Richard Rohr said. He said the issue isn't about the presence of God. The issue is our awareness of it. And so the it isn't on God, it's on us of
Right.
where our hearts and minds are at, right? You know, and
That's it.
And so and you think about what worship is a concentrated place where we're setting up an environment where you're just focused on one thing, as opposed to all the distractions of life. That one of the reasons to worship together as a community is we block out all the distractions for an hour, and maybe that'll calm our hearts long enough that God can kind of break into that. And because if you try to do it at home, you might be successful, but then the phone rings, and then there's this, and my notification on my cell phone I got a text from somebody, or you know. So worship is one of those places where it's like high concentration of focusing on God, because the rest of the week is so scattered, right? And so I'll be that doorkeeper any day of the week, right?
I love that.
And then we close off with verse 12, which I also like, and it's almost proverb like, you know, kind of a proverb. Oh, Lord Almighty, blessed is the person who trusts in you. Like, just right to the point, you know, like, you know, God's favor, that's blessed, rests on those who trust in you.
You've got to be able to trust.
Yeah.
That's the key to it all. I mean, just trust, just have faith. I mean, it's not about doing anything. It's not about anything else. Just learn to trust.
That's right. And I get it. I mean, in my world is, you know, you still have to do the business things. Like there's a business to church life. You know, you got to create budgets. You got to, track your cash flow. You gotta, make sure that you're not overspending, and you got,
Yeah, there is. All that.
maintaining stuff. Like there's a business side to this, but when it comes to the stewardship of making sure that we all have ownership in taking care of stuff. I know over the years, not like in our current council, but concern that, maybe we're going to fail. I don't mean close the doors, but just fail in what we're doing. And even at times I've had like, what are we going to do? But time and time again, God motivates the hearts of those who follow him, and we're able to do the things that God has called us to do. And maybe, in the last couple of years, I have a lot less anxiety. I'll raise the concern and be transparent about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not like I ignore it, but like, we got to talk about it. But like, I'm not like frightened about, are we going to be able to continue to do the stuff we do in the no, God will see us through. God is good. God wants us to be here. He wants us to share the love of Jesus, and people will respond to a call if there's a great need, and we can trust in that and be transparent about what we need at the same time. That Jesus says, today has enough worry of its own. Don't go borrowing it from tomorrow or next week, right? And that God will provide. And so as we trust that and still do our part, because this is not about salvation, this is about daily living. As long as we do our part, be responsible, and we trust God, God's going to open up the next path, the next step for us. And so blessed is that person who trusts in God. Yeah. And I've seen it in my life time and time again, that when I get over the fear, the anxiety, the whatever it is that's I'm worried about, and just trust God, things go better. Yeah. And I think I've told you the story about, and I will finish with this, is when I was getting ready to go to seminary, I had to sell my house. And I had this really small, old house. And to give you an indication how small this house was and how basic it was, I sold it for $29,000.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Small,
Okay.
old house. And I had gotten it sold. And about 2 weeks out from closing, I get a call saying the sale's not going to go through. And me being able to go on to seminary was dependent upon, not because of somehow some sort of cash windfall. It was just to get out of a mortgage, selling it so I don't have a mortgage payment, because back then that $275 a month mortgage payment, I couldn't sustain and be a full-time student.
Yeah.
Because it was an insurmountable amount of money. Makes you laugh today, right? Who wouldn't want a $275 mortgage, right?
Well, not everybody would want that house, though.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think you're right about that, especially after I lived in it. Good point. But I had this moment of fear, and I can't believe my world's falling apart, and, I'm not going to be able to go to school this fall, and I thought this is the path, and blah, blah, blah.
And in some ways, that's all you can see.
That's all you can see.
You're just consumed by that.
Right. And I remember I got the call. I was visiting my parents, so I wasn't even at home. I was down with my parents, and I was just like, I'm coming unglued, and after about an hour, this sense of calm came over me, and I really was like, I didn't say, well, God will fix it. I just like, thy will be done. However this turns out. God, so it wasn't like, well, no, I'm convinced now God's just going to fix this. Like, no, I was just like, okay. I don't have control. It's out of my hands. Thy will be done. And Lord, I'm just going to trust that whatever needs to happen will happen. A few days later, the person who wanted to buy the house, I think it was a woman, like her dad or parents, said they would co-sign to make sure the financing would go through.
Okay.
And so the same person who made the offer on it still bought it, but behind the scenes, which I had nothing to do with, the loan was able to go through. The $29,000 mortgage was able to be moved and sold to somebody else. And but that's that reminder of blessed is he who trusts, because the anxiety was like, and then just like
we all have those moments though where we can't see beyond the anxiety or the
yeah.
fear, and
That's right.
Yeah, we all have that.
Yeah.
So.
So great reminder. So if you want to take some time today to look at Psalm 84, there's even more in there.
There's a lot in that psalm. Yeah.
Some good stuff. So, but we're glad that you joined us today, and don't forget, we'll be back with you on Thursday at 3:00 Pacific time. But in the meantime, God bless you. We love you. Take care. And Philip, would you play us out?